We're going to go ahead. Our first speaker tonight is Mayor Tom McNamara. The mayor's been very passionate about neighborhoods and the success of our neighborhoods in our community. Those who were served by him in the 3rd Ward know that he cares deeply about our neighborhoods, and I think he's proving that in his role as mayor of our great city. So welcome Tom McNamara, Mayor, City of Rockford.
I'll be pretty brief. I just want to touch on really 3 areas that I think are important to you, your neighborhood association, and the residents that you're also serving through your neighborhood association. First, it's public safety, then it's infrastructure to start out, and then as well as blight removal. So I know you have other speakers that'll dive into depth on several of these topics, so I won't go over everything that they will, but I'll just tell you, neighborhoods is one of my top priorities in our administration's, and I believe our city council's top priority. The health of our neighborhood provides so much to our community. So I think to have strong and healthy neighborhoods, we have to have safe neighborhoods. To have safe neighborhoods, we have done a number of things. From we've increased the number of police officers that we have in our community to over 300 for the first time in a decade. We have spent more than invested, I should say, not just spent. We've invested more than $1.4 million into technology to make sure that our officers have the 21st century tools at their disposal. The third thing that we have done is we have really worked, and a lot of credit here goes to Chief O'Shea and his leadership team, worked to build and maybe repair and enhance some of the relationships we have with other local jurisdictions, as well as the state, and specifically the federal government through the FBI, the ATF, and the DEA. The fourth item, I'm a firm believer that we're not going to have safe neighborhoods, safe streets until we have safe homes. And so City Council, a lot of credit goes to them for pushing through a domestic violence office that's focusing on domestic violence and human trafficking. Just an example of why is that important if it's not necessarily, or you don't believe it's happening in either your own home or your own neighborhood. We arrested 356 juveniles for violent crime in 2016 and 2017. 75% of those 356 juveniles that were arrested for violent crime had domestic violence when they grow up in their own home, or were directly a victim of domestic violence themselves. So how we tackle this topic and what we do as a community, I think, is really important to the overall safety of our neighborhoods and overall safety of our city. I will say, I can say all those things about public safety, but is any of it working? I can tell you that 2016 to 2017, we saw 8% reduction in property crime, a 5% reduction in violent crime, and through April, we saw a minimal reduction January through April of 2018 over January through April of 2017. We continued to see a minimal reduction in property crime, but a significant reduction in violent crime of 22%. We are by no stretch where we want to be or where any alderman or the chief wants to be, but I can tell you the strategy and the investments we as a body are making an impact. The second thing is infrastructure. To have strong neighborhoods, we as a city also need to be investing in your neighborhood. So we passed the 3rd largest capital improvement plan in our city's history this past year, and in doing so, we invested an additional 25% more funds into our neighborhoods. That additional 25% was done differently than we have allocated funds in the past. Typically in the past, we give every single alderman the same amount of money, and they distribute that based on the needs of their neighborhoods. As we know, there's some neighborhoods on the far west who have less needs than some on the far east, and vice versa. What we have done with this 25% is really looked at the return on investment, the impact to the neighborhood, and most importantly to me, the pavement condition index, the ranking of those streets, and really using the science and the data that we have to allocate those finite resources. The third thing I'll briefly touch on that I know you have a speaker on is blight removal. to have strong neighborhoods, we have to reduce the blight that's in our neighborhoods. That blight is havens, typically havens for criminal activity, but they're also dragging all of our property values down. So we have, I'll call it shifted staff duties. When Mr. Flores comes up, Attorney Flores, he'll just tell you I gave him a lot more work to do, but we have I'll say shifted staff duties, and now Attorney Flores is our neighborhood stabilization officer who is really working to be proactive and be creative on our blight removal. Council in our last budget, through the budget deficits, we still were able to find a way to allocate an additional $100,000 towards blight removal. We have a long way to go, but we are making some progress, and I think our council at the end of July, one of the big items that we're going to be talking about is neighborhoods and how we work to remove blight out of our neighborhoods, from commercial structures to those nagging residential structures. The last thing I'll say, going to a lot of neighborhood meetings, is I still, from I think it was 2011 or 2010, when the city removed streetlights, that's typically a very hot topic and one that comes up every meeting I attend. We are shifting all of our sodium-based streetlights in our neighborhoods, so every light in our neighborhoods, to LED streetlights. So that will be done. They're doing the analysis and finishing up that analysis, and they'll be starting this year with about 2,000 streetlights being replaced. We will do about 1,500 to 2,000 streetlights every single year, so every single neighborhood will soon have LED streetlights in the city of Rockford. There's a couple of things that go along with that. One, I believe it improves aesthetics. Two, it'll, I believe, have an effect on either the real or the perceived perception of public safety. And the third thing, and very selfishly as a city, and aldermen can tell you, we are literally counting paper clips at the city of Rockford so that we can make sure that we're as efficient and lean as possible. And this transition to LED streetlights will provide a savings to the city of about $500,000. So we'll be more energy efficient, be able to provide better aesthetics, and also save money. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you for just all the time that you give, not just tonight's hour and a half, but the time that you give out of your own personal time to better our community and specifically better your neighborhood. I really appreciate it. I know the aldermen that are here truly appreciate the impact that you're having. And I'm just eager to be a small piece of part of tonight's discussion and look forward to future sessions. Thank you.
So the next thing we're going to do, and we're going to do this really quickly, but I would like everybody, one of the, I think the important parts of this whole effort is networking, getting to know other neighborhood leaders, sharing the great best practices that they're doing. So we're going to do a super fast round robin. I'm going to go around the whole room, and I'm going to ask you to say three things: your name, your neighborhood, and one thing that you love about your neighborhood. So I'll give an example, and I'll start. I'm Patrick O'Keefe. I live in the Edgebrook neighborhood, and I love the natural assets of my neighborhood, the 100-year-old oak trees and Spring Creek. So,
my name is Anna. I live in the Rockview Neighborhood Association, and I absolutely love the community in my neighborhood.
great, thanks. Jim?
Yeah, I'm Jim. I'm also with the Rockview. Okay. And the dynamic of my neighborhood is what I like, because it's changing, and we're seeing little babies and kids and stuff like that, and I want to keep them safe.
Great, thank you.
I'll go along with what he said.
Okay, we got a ditto. What's your name?
Carl.
Donna?
I'm Donna, and I'm also with Rockview. What I love about it is the fact that our neighborhood is starting to communicate with each other from one end to the other. We have just annexed on another addition to increase our boundaries, and we're trying to get to know them. So everybody can work together. Doesn't matter where you live, how you live, but we can communicate.
I'm John. I live in the South Park neighborhood, and I have very good neighbors.
That's great. The people. Steve?
My name's Steve. I'm in South Park, and I like the fact that neighbors are very friendly. Yep.
Great, thanks.
I'm Bob, and I'm South Park, and it's pretty clean around our neighborhood.
Super. Carol?
Carol Anderson, Haight Village Restoration Society area, and I just like being by the new restaurants and stuff we have downtown. It's great.
I'm Teresa Hill with the Signal Hill neighborhood, and we're the coolest neighborhood in the town.
There you go. There's a testimony.
Carolyn D. Tomasi, and I love the all the older homes in our neighborhood. They speak to the history of Rockford. Thank you.
Arnie D. Tomasi, Signal Hill neighborhood. I like the proximity to downtown and all the things that are available socially in Rockford.
Great.
Terry Shear, I guess it's the hope and desire of the people in the neighborhood to want to reform our neighborhood, which is the Key Malquest neighborhood. Thank you.
Dorian Peterson, Signal Hill. I love that we have young people coming back to our neighborhood.
That's great, Dory.
Bob Peterson, Signal Hill. I like the ambiance and the location. I like being close to the river. I like being near downtown, the bike path, the Y. Just a good place to be.
Great.
Tom Wise, Signal Hill. Just love the neighborhood, just all of it.
Cathy McClure, Alpine Ridge. I grew up on the west side and enjoying living on the east side.
Jeff Petra, also Alpine Ridge. I like our walkability in our neighborhood.
Don Kowalski, Alpine Ridge. I like the quietness of the neighborhood.
Cathy Johnson, Northwest United Neighbors, and I love the community garden that we have developed in partnership with Mercy Health.
Lois Skinter, Old Rockford College Historical District, and I love that we are right on the Rock River, and that's our front yard.
And she's happy to give tours. It's an undiscovered gem. She offered that to me.
Karen Hoffman from Rolling Green, and I'm excited because we've come back. We now have a clean, neat neighborhood and 4 gardens.
I'm Sandy Tower, also with Alpine Ridge. The walkability and the neighborhood garden are 2 real assets that we currently enjoy.
Great.
I'm Carolyn Elston. I'm from CMC neighborhood, and I like the fact that it's nice and quiet, but also the fact that all the neighbors watch out for each other.
Beatrice Rich from Keith Creek neighborhood, and I love that we have all the children that are coming back to our neighborhood, young families, and we're very multicultural people.
Joe Daling from Haight Village, and what I like about it is the unique people that we have in the neighborhood, which makes us the coolest neighborhood.
Oh, was that a challenge, maybe?
Dennis Rich from Keith Creek Neighborhood Association. We have many good things. The Churchill Park. We have some great little unique shops and along Charles Street that have come back, and some great little areas to visit. So.
Kathy Lupton, Keith Creek. That's what I go along with what Denny said. We have great local businesses, Sandwich Factory, Culture Shock in the neighborhood, and we also have a resident police officer in our neighborhood.
Super.
Linda Schvosik. We started out Five Pointers Neighborhood Association, and now we've expanded to take in other areas because we were a small group. And what I like is we are trying to clean up the area. It's part of Rolling Green.
Great. Excellent.
204 Vincent Avenue, which is my birth home neighborhood. I have a golf course over there, farm and fleet, and tons of natural resources.
What's your name?
Rick B.
Candy Crow with Jackson Oaks. I like that we have the strong neighborhood house, and we're bringing children back into the neighborhood with our Girl Scout troops, our gardens, and our community officer works with us.
Super.
My name is Chris, and I also live in Jackson Oaks. And like Candy said, I'm glad we have the first strong neighborhood house, and the hospital is close by, and there's a lot of things close by you can walk to.
Thanks.
Christopher Sims, Jackson Oaks, the trees and the children. I love it over there.
Great.
Mary Spindler, Churchill Groves, and I love the neighbors first and primarily, and secondly, the trees, our end-cap gardens, and our lovely green spaces.
Super.
John Spindler, Churchill Grove, neighbors, scenery.
Great. Succinct, thanks.
Jonathan Logeman, Second Ward Alderman. See a lot of Second Warders here, so that's a great thing. I echo what everyone else has said, but I think one of the things that I like about the Second Ward, kind of the Near East Side, one of the older parts of the city, is all of the unique architecture and the unique homes. I think it makes it a very special place to live.
Great, thanks. Diana?
Diana Walker, West Gateway Coalition, and the thing that I love most, not only about our neighborhood, but about our community, is that I'm blessed to meet and work with diverse people every day.
Great, thanks. Ellen? So it's your name? You're a neighbor. Okay, you got it, sorry.
I'm Ellen Amer, South Highland neighborhood, and I echo Diana's words. It's the people within my neighborhood that I appreciate the most.
I'm Gary Thurine. I'm from the Merrimark neighborhood. What I like is we have a very involved neighborhood now, watching out for each other, and as homes become available for sale, they're selling within days of listings, so it's encouraging to see new people move in.
Tom McNamara, Churchill's Grove. I would say how engaged my neighbors are in making their neighborhood stronger, being a safe distance from Chad Thunberg.
Okay, I got to give the mic to you right away, Chad, because maybe you haven't formed your retort to that.
Tom checks in the mail. Hi, Chad Thunberg.
I can't let you have the mic, Chad, because I have to have the right to pull it away from you. So.
Come on, wait. Three.
You got three things.
All right, just for Bob Peterson over there, I'll be short-winded. The history of Churchill's Grove, the fact that it was very important during the Civil War period as a training camp, the historical homes in Churchill's Grove, the walkability and bikeability of the neighborhood, not just the neighborhood, but the accessibility to other things as well by walking and bicycling. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Maureen Kwiatkowski, Palmwood is the neighborhood I live in, and the neighbors make our neighborhood the funnest. They're good people, and it's very close-knit and very nice.
Great, thanks. Okay, Owen.
I'm good.
What's your neighborhood, and what do you love about it?
I don't want to do this. It's Palmwood, and I don't know.
What do you like? He likes biking to the neighborhood.
I was going to say what Mom said.
I just like to bike.
Great, thanks. Andy?
Andy Kwiatkowski, Palmwood. I love the diverse architecture of our homes in the neighborhood.
Great. Holly?
Holly Connell, Churchill Grove, and I love that I can sit on my front porch and watch strollers and people and bikes and everyone go by who are part of our bigger community in Rockford.
Great, thanks.
Sabrina, I don't actually live in Rockford, but I visit a lot for shopping and my job.
Great, thanks.
I'm Cassie, and I live in the Coronado Haskell neighborhood, and I love being by the river.
It's Sarah Brinkman, and I live in Tower Hills neighborhood, and I love the access we have to the Midway Village walking path.
I am Vicki Fogel, North End Square, and I think my favorite, there's three of them, and they're all diversities though. It's the style of homes, it's the age ranges of the people, and oh no, I forgot the third one. That's not good.
You're sort of near Chad Thunberg. You could throw that in there.
Oh, here. Now I got it. And we're beginning to see people flipping homes, so.
Nice.
Ryan Nelson, Arnold Avenue, Lino's has to be right up there, but really the diversity of our neighbors and relationships with them.
Great.
Rob Willoughby, City of Rockford, and every one of your neighborhoods is my neighborhood.
Nice. And you love the people, right, Rob?
How you doing? Matt Flores. I live in the Woodhill neighborhood, and I love the people in my neighborhood.
Carl Franzen, Haight Village, but soon to be Midtown, but both are walk and bikeability.
Great. Bill?
I'm Bill Rose, the 9th Ward Alderman. I represent the Northwest Neighbors and Nesna, the North End Square. The thing I like most about our neighborhood is really the people and driving down Huffman Boulevard in the spring and seeing all the flowers.
So the next part of our program, we're going to talk about great neighborhoods. All of you have been exposed to great neighborhoods. Most of you in the room, we've done asset mapping, really looking at the key great things you've got in your neighborhood. So we've completed that. I know we're in the process of getting you some of the feedback. A few of the neighborhoods, we're still processing that information. We're launching a website today about great neighborhoods, and it's really been focused around things we've heard when we've talked to neighborhoods, things that they need. One of the things that Gary and Zach will talk about at length is the resource guide. There are copies, not one for everyone, but the resource guide is at your table. We've looked at best practices and the discussions we've had with you, things that you want to help build the health of your neighborhood. So our attempt there was to put together a resource guide for you. It's a PDF so you can print it, but it's really basically the key content for the website. So the website was launched today. It's pretty typical. We'll invite you to cruise around it. It's Great Neighborhoods at info. And it's, as I said, it's basically, we've started it. We've got the home page, which talks a little bit about what Great Neighborhoods is. We've started a blog, and it's really the team that's been creating content thus far on the blog. We're happy to have others contribute, so you would just send that information to us if you have an idea about what you would do or could do to enhance your neighborhood. So if we click on the blog page, we've posted 3 blogs. We're going to try to attempt to post a couple of things every month at least to start with, so we're looking for content or ideas of content. So we decided to start out with some very basic things. You know, what is asset mapping? We've talked about that. That's a term really focusing on what are the great things in the neighborhood, rather than starting with problems in a neighborhood. Focus with the great unique things, why somebody would want to perhaps come and live in your neighborhood or visit, that one special restaurant or shop that some people mentioned in their neighborhood. So what is asset mapping? We talk about in that blog what asset mapping is, the process really that we've gone through in your neighborhoods, how to influence change in your neighborhood. We talk about building capacity. How can you be a strong neighborhood? How can you get the most out of your connections with business partners in your neighborhood? How you can network with people in your neighborhood, network with other neighborhoods, how you can frankly get the most out of your elected officials. It's nice to see aldermen here today. It's nice to see a nice representation of the city staff. They're here to help you. It's important to your aldermen and city staff to see you have a strong neighborhood. So they're a great resource. And then the next section it's under the term neighborhood watch, but it's really about should you become organized as a neighborhood. There's huge variability, so when we go to the section on the website about the neighborhoods that are listed, we'll see, some are pretty advanced in how they communicate, and some are might need a little bit of help. So the blogs will be on there. There's a place to register on the website for the blogs, so when a new blog is released, it'll be pushed to the database of those folks that have registered to receive the updates of the information. So why don't we click on the neighborhood directory? And this is really, a number of partners have been very helpful in getting us organized with how the map lists. So this is the list of all the neighborhoods that we've identified that are on, quote unquote, the list of neighborhood associations that we've identified thus far. Those that are highlighted or those that are in green have information about that neighborhood. So why don't we click on Alpine Ridge? So this is really meant to help you start telling the story of your neighborhood, what's great or unique about it. So what we've done for a few of them with input is sort of a skeleton outline of what goes on in your neighborhood, a little bit of an introduction about the neighborhood, sort of the boundaries, the organization of how and when you meet. So somebody coming new to the neighborhood or new to the community that might want to learn more about your neighborhood, they would go here. So those that were not highlighted, that were in black, we're looking for feedback. We need your help to frame up what is the outline or the story of your neighborhood. So we're looking for input on those. The information on testimonials and quotes, that's basically information that came off of your asset mapping. So those are points that you, as your representatives of your neighborhood, talked about that are great and unique things for your neighborhood. So that would give somebody a sense of what goes on in that neighborhood, what do they love about it? They love the trees, they love the neighbors, they love the park, etc. If the neighborhood has a website, we'll link to the website. So Churchill Grove is, a neighborhood association that I want to say has been organized for, I believe, over 40 years. And they have volunteers that are heavily engaged, and they have somebody that works on web content regularly. So there's sort of extremes of, and we'll talk about that at the end, about what you would like to see us help you with in the area of communications. But so Churchill's Grove, they have a lot of information. They have a long history of being organized. They have a lot of super committed neighbors. So they have information about all their meetings, their subcommittees, when they meet, the minutes of the meetings, and so there's a lot of information there. And I'm not saying that that's what every neighborhood should do. Sort of common theme now is you can do a lot of this in a more simplified way with a Facebook page. So we can talk about how you establish a presence with a Facebook page. But that sort of shows the variety of means that neighborhoods have to communicate. Again, those that are up here, we're looking for input. You can contact any one of us to help. That's sort of the framework. If you can answer those 6, 7 questions, we'll at least populate that for you so you get a presence. A lot of what we found in this process is there are neighborhoods that have super ideas that are best practices. We don't have to go to Kansas City. We don't have to go to St. Louis. We might go 4 blocks across town to find some really awesome, cool ideas. Signal Hill has a door hanger, which is a great way to welcome new neighbors. They put a lot of information on it. It's not only just for new neighbors, but for when there's information going on. They give when their meetings are. It's very clear what's going on, who the officers are, when special events are coming. A very tactical way. Websites are great. Facebook is great, but somebody has to seek you out. They have to go find your site. They have to go there to look for updates. If you come home and something's on your door that it's branded with Signal Hill's logo, it's highly likely that you'll engage a neighbor with that. So it's a great way to connect. Keith Creek has some really super things that they do. Yard signs, one of my favorite things. They have this sign that they've created about supporting a variety of service providers in their community, which is awesome. They have signs that they put out to engage neighbors that maybe aren't on social media or are not seeing a door hanger about come to the meeting. Here we have the example of fantastic idea that South Highland created, and it's not, it's great. It's not super complicated. We have examples out. This is a PDF on the website. Create a certificate of recognition of a neighbor that re-sided their garage or painted their front door or re-landscaped. It's little things like that you can engage your neighbors and get to know them, show appreciation, help inspire other neighbors to maybe do some enhancements in their neighborhood. So they have these at their regular meetings, neighborhood meetings. You can take them, you can handwrite them and fill them out, and you can take them to a neighbor, either drop it in their box or knock on the door and say, hey, we really appreciate the fact that you cleaned up your whole alleyway and put some landscaping in there, or whatever. The business card idea, which is a super duper idea, that is business cards, you can spend $40 on them, $30 on 1,000, and they create a business card that's got their officers of their neighborhood association, the day and time of the month that they meet. So a new neighbor comes into the neighborhood, it's super easy to put it in their door or go over and greet them and say, hey, we meet on the 3rd Thursday at the church at 5:30. Please join us. Consider, calling us if you have any concerns about the neighborhood. Here are the 3 neighborhood leaders, and we're happy to be engaged. And, if you have a website or a Facebook site, encourage them to go there. So the website is ever evolving. There's enhancements to be made, so we're welcome to take input. It's live now. We've got the blog that we'll continue to create content for, and the neighborhood, fleshing out those neighborhoods with sort of the outline of what's great or what we've heard about the neighborhood. So we're looking for your input and assistance on creating that outline for your neighborhood. So with that, we'll go to the tab that's the resource guide, and Zach and Gary are going to walk through that. This is really, frankly, the heavy lifting, the heavy content of what's on the website. It's on there, as I said, as a PDF. We ask you to register for it, and you can download it so you can follow along. We made hard copies, but this is really the great work that's gone in the last 6 months, is creating this resource guide.
So as Patrick mentioned, we have the resource guide tab at the top of the screen. As we kind of scroll down, there's different topics that you can expand on. So like if you clicked on property ownership, that kind of acts as what is the table of contents on page 2 of the paper copy we have out. But we also have a link that you can download the PDF. So it's a quick way just to be able to either click through and read it online or download it and print it.
You know, the thing is trying to create a database that can help you understand who your neighbors are, who the owners are. And when you have issues or problems, you know, you can kind of go to them. If not, you know who they are, and you can let the city know that we have issues with this particular property. Can you help us out? So it empowers you to be able to understand, you know, what's going on in your neighborhood a whole lot better, and you can be more effective when you do that. I think the other thing is that we've noticed, and a lot of you have already talked to us about, where there are large blocks of owners. Are they problematic? Is this not only happening in that property, but in other properties? So again, you can be more proactive in helping not only your own neighborhood, but maybe other neighborhoods as well.
And as you'll notice on the front cover, we also have, it's tabbed version 1, May 2018. This is a living and breathing document that we are looking for additional feedback on content that we may have overlooked that may be beneficial to the neighborhoods. When you do the download, it'll ask you for your email information. The only reason we're really looking for that is we want to be able to notify you when we do a new version, to just kind of be able to send out a blast and say, hey, we've updated this, go take a look and download the latest and greatest so that everybody's working off the latest version.
I'd like to be doing this at least quarterly, if not every couple of months. So the more input that you provide and things that you see that we can do better, we're not against some critiquing at all. So we're all in this to make it better and make you better advocates, and also make our neighborhoods a whole lot better. And going through, scrolling down there a little bit, you know, understanding code enforcement, and then again, understanding your neighborhood assets, which some of you have already gone through, and to be more cognizant of what those assets are, and how do you begin to kind of let other people know what those assets are, which gets us further on down. But it's really looking at what can we end up doing with that. So as you go through all of these components of the resource guide, it's there to help you. I think all of us, and we talk about it a little bit in here, you get frustrated. Yes, we all do, and but here's some ways in which to help you. And I think we also want to serve as mentors to see how can we end up helping you if you've got some really insurmountable problem. You've tried all these things and you're not getting anywhere. And so we're here to be there for that helping hand whenever it's required. The other thing is understanding your architectural history and styles of your homes. So there were several comments in here about the architecture. Well, what is that, and how do you define that? Because the more we know about our homes and the people that live there and influence our community, the better off we all are. And I think as it really brings about the importance of place and what occurred here, what's occurring now, and maybe other people are really enamored about that and say, hey, I want to live there because of this or this or that. And street names are also kind of indicators as to what's the history and who was involved in really developing this neighborhood and why that street might have been named after them. So we go through all of that, and also about the importance of landscaping and gardens. It was interesting in some of our asset mapping, the importance of being able to see the garden from the alley. We didn't know that the alley was so important to so many people. Was not only a place for the kids to play, but it was also a way that they could end up seeing their neighbor's backyard and all the cool gardens that are behind there, because you don't see that from the front of the street. So you never know about your neighborhood and what we know about it, or what we feel, why we feel so passionate about why we live there and why we love it. The other thing is understanding certainly the way Rockford used to look as the Forest City. When you take a look at photos like this, it's kind of hard to imagine. I remember that as a kid. And I think some of you also remember that here that have lived in Rockford all your lives. But landscaping is really critical. And so we want to make sure that we can be adding more things here. What are some of the best practices and good things that we can be doing? A lot of neighborhoods have put their good landscaping around their signage, identifying their neighborhood. That's a wonderful way of getting that first step, but it's also encouraging others to do even more, because it's the little things that make a huge difference when it's all cumulative that everybody is participating in.
And then the next portion gets into the developing objectives and goals for the neighborhood. We're here, we're volunteering our time, but we're here to assist. We're not here to steer your neighborhoods into creating your own goals and your own destinies. So this is just kind of a spot to reach out to us to help assist with your overall kind of planning and how you accomplish those plans.
You know, some of the neighborhoods already have gone into the next phase of doing some strategic planning. And I think those are the things that we want to encourage, giving yourself a sense of direction, some goal setting, and also setting some objectives as to where you want to be. You know, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now, what do you want to look like? So these are all things that are possible, I think, with the help of the resource guide to help guide you in doing that. But the most important thing is that you're creating your own destiny here.
And then the next section's on communication, which Petra kind of hit on, that we hear a lot of, how to get people to come to our neighborhood association meetings. And so it's just kind of a little bit of different options, whether it's the door hangers, the signs, the newsletters, or, how to set up a website, a Facebook page. So those are just some of the feedback we're starting to hear, and just briefly hitting on some of the tips on how to go about that way. And then we get into the doing part, which is a lot of what Patrick hit on with the examples from South Highland and Keith Creek and Signal Hill of, how do we make some of those next steps to help get our neighborhood names out there and start getting more people involved.
You know, doing is a critical thing about action. And, in one of the blogs, we talk about that, the importance of showing progress, believability that you can do something, that you can make a difference. So it's really important to set your goals and go and attain them. They can be small things, and then you can work your way up, but it starts to build a lot of confidence. It creates a really positive attitude about leadership and what your neighborhood is capable of doing. And so these are really little things, but they can be huge over a period of time. The other thing is influencing change. I think that, this is not something that just happens overnight, that it takes time. And it's about relationship building. Building relationships with your neighbors, your aldermen, with city officials, again, we talk about it in a blog about how you go about doing it. You don't come in with a hammer. It's about being a friend. How can you help me? And just going about doing that. And because a lot more can be accomplished, and I think we've seen in all of our neighborhoods that kind of camaraderie, as well as a willingness to lend that helping hand to say, what can we do together? And so I think these are the things that really spell success. And you can go a long way in terms of changing what's going on in your neighborhood that you might not like, but also attracting more people that say, this is a cool place to live. I want to be there.
And then down a little bit here, we're going to get into the neighborhood safety, which gets into the non-emergency phone number. And then we've got the city here tonight to talk about the non-emergency website, but also kind of just hit on, if you see something, say something, otherwise it's not going to get done. So the city's here to do their website overview of that.
The other is marketing and branding. And by the way, we have a lot of phone numbers in here. They're back in the appendix without overwhelming things, but we're also in the resource guide being able to click on areas where that can really be helpful to you, so it goes pretty quick. But in the appendix, we have a lot of phone numbers there for you to be using, or even some other additional websites. The other thing is about marketing and branding. How can we market ourselves better? And we haven't done a great job of that, of saying, hey, how great is my neighborhood? And so we want to be able to provide the tools to you to help make that happen. We'll be talking about that at the very end tonight. We got some exciting things to tell you about, and as to what our next steps are. But I think one of the things we're trying to do is to build a photo catalog of our neighborhoods. Your photos are critical to really being able to market and sell ourselves as neighborhoods as well as the city of Rockford. And so we want to create this repository of photos that we can be using. And I think one of the things that's wonderful to see in some of the photos are people walking on the street, walking the dog. We never realize how important that is. In terms of neighbor getting to know neighbor. Sometimes we may not know their name, but we know the dog's name. And so it's these kinds of things that are really, really important. And I think the other thing is the importance of sidewalks because of the walkability. And I think I never realized until maybe the last 20 years of how important that was to building community and building that sense of place. So if you got sidewalks, fantastic. We just need to maintain them. But it's of how we do a better job of branding and marketing ourselves. And there's lots of things that we can be doing. And some of you may have some expertise in that we would love to hear from. We don't have all the answers.
So then we're to the appendix section. Like Gary mentioned, there's a lot of contact information for the different city departments, as well as like county health, kind of just to give you an overview of who to go to. Not all of the neighborhood people are on the website, so we're looking at ways to kind of help fund to be able to get a lot of these printed copies out to the different neighborhood associations to be able to distribute to those people. This is just kind of an overview of some of the typical questions and answers, as well as some statistics that, like on how many calls the police department has to deal with. So they may not get to your non-emergency right away because obviously they've got tons of calls to deal with, as same as the fire department.
And so this resource guide is really focused to Rockford. And I think as we have evolved in this whole process, we've also been talking to Loves Park, Belvedere. We would like to more or less, also do it for them, using a lot of these resources that we already have built, but certainly a lot of the phone numbers, some websites and things like that, that we want to, individualize this for some communities as well as all those that are participants in this Transform Rockford movement. So stay tuned for that, but we wanted to get this thing off the ground here first. Thank you.
The Park District was to be here, and they were not able to make it. They were really going to talk just for a few minutes about their online survey. I know many of you have seen it. Cindy has really worked to push it to neighborhoods and associations. Some early feedback I know that they've gotten is they are likely with their strategic plan going forward to focus more on sort of the neighborhood parks and programming that was in neighborhood parks. So from our perspectives of people that care deeply about neighborhoods, I know preliminary things that they've heard from community members are, let's focus on neighborhood parks again, which they've done such a great job in the past. So that's exciting. So that was that piece. So we'll go ahead and I'll bring up Rob, and he's going to talk about the online service request. We really encourage people to use this system. I think it's really the great way to track those of you who've worked in an organization that has had an IT request. There's a lot of requests. We have heard from a number of folks that we've encountered in the asset mapping of, I have a complaint, and I call and I don't think it's recorded or I don't know where it's recorded, please try to use the online system. It's really a great way to capture. Your request will be tracked and you'll see the closure of it. So Rob, thanks.
Thank you. My name is Rob Willamy. I'm the Neighborhood Standards Supervisor for the City of Rockford. I manage half of our city's code enforcement program. As Patrick said, I'm going to be teaching you guys tonight how to use probably what I consider the most efficient way to get a request for city services in to the city, and it also allows you to track that request to see the progress in it. I know Alderman Hoffman and Alderman Rose have really pushed this out in their wards, and I think they've seen some significant improvements in areas. Alderman Hoffman mentioned me earlier, Rolling Green is really heavy on it, and we've seen this as well. This is rockfordillinois.gov. If you look at the very left-hand side of the screen under most frequent content, you're going to see service requests right there. And you're going to come to this screen here, and you've got one of two options. You can actually create an account which allows you to track the service requests that you have put in. For now, we're just going to go and enter as a guest. I highly recommend creating an account. And you're going to come up to a screen here with a whole lot of different options for city services. Everything from, so neighborhood standards is what falls under me, graffiti, potholes, property standards, which is building code complaints, water issues, garbage issues, a little bit of anything, forestry, trees, street lights, it's all on here. So for now, what we're going to do is we'll just go to my divisions. If you scroll up to the top of the page a little bit and go to neighborhood standards right there, click on that. And you've got one of two options. You can either check the submit anonymously box or you can provide your contact information. Either way, your complaint remains 100% anonymous to the public. One of the things that I hear a lot is someone will call and say, well, you said it was anonymous and my neighbor said you called. It's kind of the oldest trick in the book. The neighbor assumes that you're the one that turned him in, so he's going to try to bait you. So I can assure you that 100% of everything stays anonymous with us if you do provide contact information. It also allows us to reach out to you if we need some more detail on your complaint. So for now, what we'll do is if you scroll up to the top and just click on Submit Anonymously, and then request type. So let's select one there, and it gives you a drop-down box. For now, let's just go with tall grass or weeds, since that's kind of the most common one. And enter in a description. Just put weeds are really tall, need to be cut, or grass is really tall, needs to be cut. And then scroll down a little bit. And location, let's just say that there isn't an address associated with the property. You could always type in south side of 400 block, halfway in the block, kind of give our inspectors an idea where it's at. If you have a photograph, you can attach it right here and then hit submit. And now it says one address match found, so if there is a confirmed address, you click on that little box. And what that does is it creates a service request number, a 6-digit number right there. And if you have an account, it will track that number. So if you create an account, it'll track that. And what that does instantly is it emails myself and several individuals at City Hall. And I can go right from my phone and assign an inspector to that. Or if I'm at work, we go into our Hansen system and we assign it right there. So it basically automatically assigns an inspector to your case. And if you hold on to that 6-digit number, you can go back in and track that at the opening screen and watch the progress. It'll say inspection scheduled. If there is definitely a violation there, it'll say case started, violation confirmed. If it isn't abated, then it'll go through the hearing process. It'll just give you some basic details on where you are with the case. So even though it might not seem like something's being done, it sometimes takes a little bit of time with our process, and you know that it is still a work in progress. One of the things that we do with our inspectors, though, is education is our most important tool. So when we go to a property, the first thing, unless there's a safety issue or something along those lines, the first thing we do is we knock on the door and try to talk to them and say, hey, okay, we noticed your car's in the backyard in the grass. What's going on? It's a violation of a zoning ordinance, and well, it broke down, I'm trying to get it fixed, and instead of sending them, one of our standard boilerplate letters that says you're in violation, they'll try to work something out right there. I said, okay, well, what do you need, like a week? We'll swing back, we'll take a look, make sure it's gone. And we found most of the time that that's the quickest and easiest ways to get compliance and going through so. We got direct contacts with, area municipalities and other local units of government. So I know the Park District is a little bit behind on some of their mowing this year. They had some contractor issues. We've had a few park complaints. So I send it straight over to the contact there, say, hey, we got this complaint, just give you a friendly heads up. They're addressing it. One of the more common ones we get is vehicle complaints, vehicles at road, abandoned in the road were right away or parked out front. A lot of times people put service requests in for us when anything in the road or right away is Rockford Police Department. Call the non-emergency number, but if we do get those, what we do is we just forward them right over to dispatch.
Thanks a lot, Rob. We appreciate it. So I encourage you to use that system. It's just a better way to track. You'll have better clarity on your report, what the status is. Next, Matt Flores is going to help us with some discussion of things that are going on with blight reduction. I know the city's taking it seriously. Frankly, we've heard that at every single neighborhood meeting that we go to is concerns over what's happening with those houses in your neighborhood that aren't sort of up to snuff. So, Matt, thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Flores. I'm an assistant city attorney. I'm also the city's neighborhood stabilization officer, as the mayor mentioned earlier. And so I'll tell you a little bit about what I handle and a little bit about how I think that my office is useful for you guys as community leaders and how I hope to be really a force multiplier for the efforts that you want to make in your community. So in addition to being a city attorney, I go to court. I have court cases. The city's prosecutor. I prosecute our code violation cases. But in my role working in neighborhoods, I really coordinate a lot with Rob's staff, the neighborhood standards inspectors, the property standards inspectors, our team in public works, our police officers, our community service officers, our firefighters, to improve the health and well-being of communities. So there are kind of three areas that I want to talk about. One is talking about problem structures. So we know that there's 126,000 properties, plus or minus, in the city of Rockford, and we have 4 property standards inspectors. It's not a very fair distribution of all those numbers amongst them. And so we really rely heavily on tools like our online system and hearing from the community about problems that are coming up and ways that we can get involved and ways that we can respond. And those things do cycle through pretty fast, up through the supervisors and up to me as well. And we look at ways to resolve problems that are happening in communities. And that doesn't always mean that someone's going to get a fine and someone's going to get slapped on the wrist. It's great to bring people in and have conversations. We have a great community development department that administers a lot of programs. And so sometimes it's as simple as hearing from a community member that's going through a hard time and they can't maintain their property, and connecting them with a grant program for a rehabilitation loan, or connecting them for weatherization assistance or a roof repair program, and being able to find the resources that are available to the people that need it and start working on property issues. We know that there are conduct issues in neighborhoods as well. We're aware that there are individuals who are out in your community that are causing disruptions. It may not be gunshots and stabbings all the time. Sometimes it's people riding ATVs through neighborhoods. That's a common complaint that we're hearing. And just today I had a phone conversation with some of our police commanders and talking about how we can address this issue. Our police officers went out today and confronted a group and issued some citations, and we're going to be bringing them in and trying to deal with them through that process. But we don't know about these things unless we have some level of communication from community groups. I don't spend a lot of time out in the field. There's not a lot of people driving around, unfortunately, to diagnose these issues. And so it's really helpful to us to have that kind of feedback. So one of the biggest areas of my responsibility is community building and working with organizations. So I work with a lot of internal groups within City Hall. I spend most of my day not on my actual floor where my office is, but on other floors in the building and going up and down and talking to people, but also being involved in organizations like this. I've been out to some community events and I've been able to talk to some concerned citizens and listen to their problems that they have going on. and try to marshal the city's resources to respond, where we can and how we can. And sometimes I go out and I give the news that, I know it's an issue, but it's going to cost a couple $100,000 to demo this structure, and the city doesn't have those kind of resources, unfortunately, as Mayor McNamara will admit to. And so sometimes it's having that conversation, but at least explaining that we know about it, we're trying to work on it, but at least keeping you informed as to what our efforts are. I wish I would have brought more of my cards. I don't have that many, but I'm going to leave some here in the back, and I really would welcome anybody to reach out to me by phone or email at any time to talk about your concerns and how I can be helpful in your community with issues that you're having. So one of the big issues that I hear about all the time is our demolitions. The city demolishes plus or minus about 100 structures a year. And just to give you guys an idea of what that process looks like, is there's a little over a dozen people at City Hall who have their hands on that process, moving it from beginning to end. And that can take up to 12 months, and sometimes that requires me to go to court and have a trial over whether or not we can take down a structure. It's a very involved process. And we don't know about some of these houses to get them ranked and get them demolished unless we hear feedback from the community. And so it's very helpful to us. The more you can fill out service requests, the more you can let us know and keep us informed. And it may not look like we're working on it right away, but I assure you we are tracking a lot of these things. So there's a lot of information real fast. Are there any questions I can answer from? Yes, sir. How does a house become uncondemned? I am not a property standards inspector, and so I don't know the specific criteria for that. So the code official for the city and his designees, the inspectors that go out, they condemn a house whenever it's unfit for human occupancy for a variety of reasons. For a house to get uncondemned, they need to be re-inspected, and those conditions need to no longer be present. And when those are satisfied, the city issues a letter called an uncondemned letter, and the placard is removed from the building. So a lot of times what happens is we condemn a structure, and the property owner will let someone live there anyway and charge them rent. And so just yesterday, myself and police were out at West State Street. There's a house that's been condemned for a couple of years. We had to obtain a warrant for the house. We went inside the house. We had to have somebody removed because he was paying rent to live in a condemned structure. And so he's going to have to go over after the property owner. We're looking at working with the state's attorney's office to get criminal housing management charges pushed against the property owner. And ultimately, we have to board up that house to preserve it, and not only preserve it, but protect it, because there's floors that the person could have fallen through. The walls are not stable. That person could die in a fire. And we have a responsibility to everyone to ensure that they are living in a safe environment. And so we get that person assistance. Human Services is involved. We're able to get them, sometimes they have hotel programs. We'll help you get first month's rent payment programs. I don't know too much about their stuff. But sometimes that's the actions that we have to take. But we condemn a house and someone just takes that yellow card off and it keeps on going. And if you see someone do that, call us. It's not going to annoy anybody on the first floor. If you call us and say, I think this house is condemned and people are living in it, that's information that we need to help do our jobs. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt. We appreciate that input. A couple of things. We're going to go into the next section. We're going to talk a little bit about two things. What you've learned through the process so far, and if you're implementing anything about the asset mapping or the process we've taken you through. And then these meetings are meant to be your meetings, so we want to develop what you want next. Next steps, and this is, I want you to raise your hands or shout out. What are you doing, or what have you used from the process we've gone through about the asset mapping? Did you have any aha moments that you want to share with others in the group? Whether it's the signage, the door hanger, how we can get engaged with our aldermen. Anybody want to shout something out, or I'll run over to you? Anything that since you've gone through the asset mapping, and most of you have done it. If you have not gone through asset mapping, we want to sign you up. We're working on 3 or 4 neighborhoods right now. We've got them scheduled, but see Cindy. Denny, you have something to share?
Well, I was just saying in Keith Creek, we just, this week actually for the June, we teamed up with Swedish American Foundation, and we have given out the Lawn of the Month award, which we put a sign in front of. We gather 2-3 neighbors who have nice looking lawns, and with Swede's help. We give out, I think it's not a lot of money, but a $25 gift certificate for Nicholson Hardware.
Yeah, and embedded in that, Denny, is a super idea of engaging your business neighbors as well.
We sat down as a group and decided to set some goals for our neighborhood, and one of the things we wanted to do was connect with the business district, because we are right there with them, and safety is a big issue, and I went to their meeting, and they're working on safety things, so we're trying to collaborate together with each other and help each other out in that respect.
That's great. And we talked, I know, at our meeting in Alderman Beach was there about having a plan. And so I think right now we're getting close to the end. We'll transition into what do you want these meetings to be next? We have the notion of perhaps organizing workshops around things of strategic planning. I know when we met with your group, we said, well, if pedestrian and bicycle access across the creek to Miracle Mile is a thing that would really enhance your lifestyle and enhance the effectiveness of those businesses, if you had a strategic plan, you'll be, and I know it sounds ominous, but way more effective in working with city government, working with your aldermen to say, hey, over the next 5 years, we really need and want that pedestrian access to get across to the business district. And there's enough interest that, so framing up the 3 to 5 things you want to accomplish in the next 3 years, I think is huge. So this is what we've heard when we've been out and about. Communication is a big effort, and that's, do we need a website? Should we have Facebook? What is this thing called Nextdoor? So we'll go ahead and put that on as the first thing. Do you want some focus around communication? And, that could be, we could bring some people that will help you determine what is best for you, and that could be a workshop, or that could be our next quarterly meeting. The other thing we've heard a ton about, and I'll pick on Sandy again, succession planning for leaders in your neighborhood. I know some of you have been there, tried and true, on and off, for not only years, but for decades, leading your neighborhood. And what are ways that you can help engage, the new neighbors, the Bob Johnson, who just is retired and now has the capacity, the Smiths that are now empty nesters that might be able to take that on because their lives are, so succession planning, or just really leader planning in your neighborhood. And I think to a neighborhood, everybody's had that as an issue. Everybody's sort of been in the barrel for a very long time, but you care deeply. So
we need to include different cultures. We have a lot of people that are, they're Latin, they're Spanish, Mexican, whatever, and not just Latin, they're the people from the kids, and we need to be able to talk to them. We literally go and give them the card. I talk to them in Spanish. Please come to the meeting. It'd be really nice. Kids are welcome. You can eat. We have food. We try to convince them to come. Not a one. I'm the only Spanish person. And I'm married to the leader.
So that under that notion of communication, it's a whole bunch of stuff. We have heard that in every neighborhood. How do we communicate with new people in our neighborhood, with people outside our neighborhood, with our adjoining neighborhood? So that is one we've heard. The idea of leader planning. Sandy, sorry.
Formalizing our organization, either a not-for-profit status or just registering as a business, yes.
Yeah, and we can help. I think, frankly, there's networking. I talked to Holly Connell. She's been an officer of Churchill's Grove. There's a lot of discussion about, if you have a strategic plan and we want to implement, frankly, that usually requires resources for our signage, for our whatever. Okay, Alpine Ridge's, Zach's saying Alpine Ridge's newsletter, I know they work diligently at that and do a great job. Teresa?
I think we have a good grant writer in Signal Hill, but I think that's an asset that other neighborhoods could benefit from.
I think she just maybe volunteered you for 144 neighborhoods. So other things that, I'm just throwing out things that we've heard at a number of neighborhoods. Blight reduction, we've heard a ton of that. Alderman Thunberg did something super interesting, and I've talked to him about it a couple times, really bringing code enforcement, on a Tuesday afternoon to the neighborhood and telling neighbors what that's not in compliance. I think Ellen had a great idea of how do we engage neighbors as people first to try to abate some of that versus maybe calling the authorities, and a lot of it setting by example.
One thing that frustrates me is the amount of trash in this city and no resources for people walking around to deal with it. There's no trash cans, there's no recycling. They have no place to put it, so it goes on the ground. And you go into stretches of town and it's just bottles and cans and just flaming hot Cheeto wrappers are my favorite ones. But working with the city or the park district or our Rock River disposal of how can we place trash containers in the city and make it look better. I mean, it's really low-hanging fruit that we're not doing that.
I agree. It's one of my pet peeves too, Lois. And one of the things I think about that is probably, it's costly, but is a campaign about why do you throw it out your window? Where your car lands or stops, whether it's at the gas station, at your home, at your office, has trash receptacles. So can't you just put it on the seat or on the floor, and when you get to your destination, throw it away rather than, so I think, even the notion of a campaign about hang on till you get there and then throw it away, versus additional trash receptacles.
We see people in the Churchill's Grove neighborhood that will actually be out walking in the morning for exercise, and they'll have sometimes little trash bags with them, and they'll be picking up trash as they go along. It's fun to see that. But what Tom earlier before he left wanted me to mention that neighborhood sweep, and Patrick just mentioned it. That was along the lines what you're talking about with the trash. To make a long story short, I went there on a call with a constituent, and in the Jackson Oaks neighborhood, I appreciate the people from Jackson Oaks neighborhood here. It's great to see you. There was a couple streets there that you wouldn't even look at some of the properties there because the trash along the curbs and the right-of-way was just immense. And so I truly believe that you could have the greatest house on a block, but if you throw some trash in the yard and then have the grass grow to 8-10 inches, look what the house looks like now. You don't even look at the house. The house, for the most part, looks dumpy. But if you have a house that isn't the greatest house, but you have a nice manicured lawn and there's no trash in the lawn, it looks pretty acceptable. So that neighborhood sweep that we did we had probably 8 to 10 code enforcement. I'm sorry to see those guys not here. They just left. But it was a great effort with code enforcement, with city legal, and the Rockford Police Department. And we swept 3 streets, Revelle, Crosby, and Benton. We gave neighbors that were homeowners a warning, and most of the landlords, and especially the out-of-town landlords, I can't say they were so lucky. But the neighbors that came out it just gave them a hope and optimism that we're taking this seriously. And I want to let everyone know that the aldermen here and the administration here, there's so much behind the scenes work that goes on, and we are really all doing a lot of work to try to get this going in the right direction. So thank you, and thank you for our Jackson Oaks neighbors over there. Keep up the great work.
Great, thank you, Alderman Thunberg. Before we break, I really would like to get to what we wish to see in the next meeting. Do we talked about workshops, or do we every quarter we're going to have this summit. Do we want to focus on one subject at the next summit, so be prepared to raise your hand about things you think we should focus on or have a workshop or a summit on, the next summit on.
Something I think might be interesting is to bring somebody in that can talk to us about, and it's probably my background showing, but talk to all of us about how to develop a brand. I think there's a lot of pride that comes with having a brand, having a slogan, having a logo, those types of things. Signal Hill has some shirts on tonight. I think there's a lot of camaraderie that can happen in a neighborhood. Ta-da! Nice modeling. But I think that there's a lot of pride that can come with that, and a lot of camaraderie can come out of that.
I agree, Vicki, and I think we had a veiled challenge somewhere, two neighborhoods that said they had the coolest neighborhood.
I'm wondering if we can find out more granting sources as well. We all know about the Northern Illinois community grants, and I think through them Home Start, but there have to be other granting organizations for safety issues and communication issues, and so I'd like to find out more about that.
I agree, Doreen, and I think that goes hand in hand with the notion of, do you need to become a standalone 501c3, or are there other ways where you can use local agencies or through the municipal government to get those pathways for that funding?
You know, if I could step back a little bit as to the next steps, is we've initiated in Signal Hill block captains. Now, it's impossible to get volunteers for any organization, but it's my responsibility to take care of the 500 block of rentals and then all the way around my 4 blocks, and I take care of it once a month. I go pick up all the trash, go through the alleys and this and that. We probably have, 4 or 5 block captains now?
Well, we have 4 or 5 people who have offered.
But getting the things done, but that helps with your beautification of the neighborhoods too.
That's a great idea.
How about getting other cities, I don't know, maybe in Illinois or surrounding areas, that maybe we could get some ideas from them also?
That's a great idea. Yeah, best practices. We talk about that all the time.
I have something I'm really concerned with is that we have North Church and North Main that have one-way streets that maybe, 15, 20 years ago, they were important because a lot of traffic went downtown. That's not the way it is anymore. And I'd like to see those go back to two-way streets, which turns them back into a neighborhood, not a speedway. I
agree, and I know that's on the radar, and it's state-related and complicated.
So one of the great things is our neighborhoods have this great identity, but a lot of times what we forget is that not everyone in the city has a neighborhood association that they're a part of, and to take into consideration that maybe we need to take a second look at those people that live outside that border, that to say to them, hey, you're still a part of our neighborhood. We want you to come to our meetings. We want to extend our borders to some of those areas because, yes, everyone should have a neighborhood association here in Rockford, and that's something that I think we should consider down the road.
I agree. By show of hands, so we can, we won't probably pick the one tonight, and let's say you can vote 3 times. So you can vote for your 3 favorite. So this would be focused for either workshops or next steps work. It might be this quarterly where we would focus the work around, in essence, a workshop. So, okay, I'll run through them all. The request is I run through them all. So you can vote 3 times. Communication, your web, Facebook, Nextdoor, et cetera, how you communicate with your neighbors and about your neighborhood. Succession planning, which is basically, how do you develop new leaders in your neighborhood? The third one, engage new people and involve all cultures of your neighborhood. Maybe that's close to the second one. Not-for-profit organizational status, and I would tie that with, how do we fund? Because I'm not a huge fan of necessarily making a bunch of not-for-profits, but if it's a conduit to getting funding, grant writing, so we'll put those together. Blight reduction, code enforcement, which I'll put those together. Trashy dumpsters, so let's combine a few of these. So 1 is communication, 2 is succession planning and engaging new people, 1 is not-for-profit status, granting, ways to develop support for your strategic plan. 4 is blight reduction, code enforcement, trash cleanup, dumpsters. And then I'll call developing your brand and communications. So they are, we'll narrow it to 4. Communications. Oh, sorry. Block captains, best practices, transportation in one-ways, extending borders. So I think yeah, best practice. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've got it to 4. Communications, succession planning, engaging new people, not-for-profit status around, your strategic plan and funding, blight reduction, code enforcement, trash cleanup, and then brand development is really with communications. So. Yes? Okay, so Diane is saying once you had a little bit more meat around the bones or a little bit more structure, you were able to attract more partners and collaboration and ultimately more funding. Okay, so because we've narrowed it down to 4, you're only going to get 2 votes because I don't want to go through this process multiple times. So you get 2 votes. I'll run through them real quick. Communications, succession planning and engagement of more people, not-for-profit status, strategic plan granting, and blight reduction, code enforcement. So do you have a question, Sandy? Brand, we're going to move brand up to communications. Okay, we have a suggestion from the floor, and whether it's quarterly or we set separate dates for them, that since we've narrowed it to 4, that over the next 12 months, we focus on one of these 4 and we just accomplish these. Okay, that made the process super easy. Great suggestion, Sandy. So we'll formulate these into, the buckets, and we'll share that to make sure we've got what you intended in your comments in each bucket, and then we'll plan that go forward.
Like our asset mapping, this is all information pulled from you. This is nothing that we're forcing upon anybody. Same with the website. The neighborhood directory section that we have set up right now is just our notes that we took from the initial asset mapping meetings, but really that is ultimately going to be geared towards giving your neighborhood association a spot to provide information and help brand and market yourselves. So on the back table, we just got in 1,000 new business cards here, copying Keith Creek's lead, and they have the website on there, so feel free to take 15, 20, whatever you want to be able to take back to your neighborhood association. It's got our email address. It's got the Transform Rockford home office phone number now, so anybody will get a hold of somebody direct now, as well as the website information. So like Gary mentioned, we're looking to start building a database of photos and all that.
You have an opportunity tonight to sign up for, we're meeting tomorrow. Jefferson High School has a drone program for doing video, and they've offered their services this summer. They want to get started right away, so we got students that want to work this summer, and they want to film your neighborhood. So if you would like to put your name down and contact information, we will be calling you right away to say, let's do this, and we want to be able to put our best foot forward whenever we're filming, so we want our neighborhoods looking sharp. And we're also going to be doing this probably in the fall, so we're going to be trying to really show our neighborhoods in the best possible light, and I do mean that even at the end of the day or in the early morning, when the light's the best, we're going to be doing all of these things to market and brand your neighborhood. So we're going to see how it works out. These students build their own drones too. They're pretty versatile. They do a great job. So just to let you know, and I'll have you sign right up here. So thank you.